Welcome students, welcome to lecture number 16 where we will be continuing with module number 3 under subject indirect taxation. So module number 3 as we know is time and value of supply, where we have already seen time of supply, change in rate of tax in respect of supply of goods or services, place of supply, and we were seeing value of supply, and today again we will be continuing with what is value of supply. Okay, quickly when we'll just revise value of supply. Remember, students, is covered under section 15. Section 15, subsection 1 says value of supply is a transaction value. What is transaction value? Price actually paid or payable on the sale of goods or services. And this will be the transaction value provided supply is between an unrelated person and price is a sole consideration for supply. What if the supply is between related person and price is not the sole consideration for supply? Then we have to see section 15 subsection 4, which says that if the supply is between unrelated person and if price is not the sole consideration for sale, then you have to refer the rules. And we have seen rule number 27, rule number 28. Rule number 27 is where the payment, where the consideration is not completely in money, where it is partly in cash and partly in kind. And rule number 28, we have seen that where the supply is made between related persons or distinct persons. So then we need to apply those rules. If these two conditions are met, then apply subsection 2 of section 15, which says that what all should be included in the transaction value. All taxes excepting exception GST taxes amount that the supplier was liable to pay, but it is paid by the recipient. All incidental or ancillary expenses, interest, late fee for delayed payment, all the subsidies received exception government subsidies. What you have to exclude from the transaction value: discount which is given either before or at the time of supply, and such discount should be, we should be able to link it to the invoice. Discount given after supply also you can exclude provided it was written in the agreement that was entered before or at the time of supply, and ITC has been reversed by the recipient on such discount. Next, again I told section 15 subsection 4 is nothing. Suppose if the value cannot be determined, in case if it is related person, price is not the sole consideration, then you have to follow the GST rules. Now, what is the valuation rules for supply of goods and services? So we have different rule numbers. Rule number 27, 28, 29, 30, 31 tells us where the goods or services are being supplied between a related person and where the price is not the sole consideration. Whereas rule 32, 32 subsection 1, 32 subsection 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these talks about valuation in case of notified goods and services. So up to 27 to 31, the valuation is where the consideration is not received in completely in form of cash, and where the supply is made between related persons. Whereas section 32 subsection 1 to 32 subsection 6, it is valuation is in case of notified goods or services. When I say notified, means government has told that for these goods and services the valuation has to be done as per these rule numbers. So we had already seen rule number 27 and 28. So let us move ahead to the further rules. So rule number 27, as we quickly will revise, that consideration received partly in cash and partly in kind, which means price is not the sole consideration. Then how will you value, in case how will you make the value of goods and services in such case? First you will see for open market value. If open market value is not available, then what you will do is you will add up. What are you going to add up? The monetary value, what you have received in cash, plus the monetary value of the kind, plus the monetary consideration. So you will total this up and you will get the total value. Third, if you're not able to do first and second, then third thing is you will see what is the value of the like, kind and quantity, okay, of such goods and services. Suppose 1 2 3 does not work, then you will go for the fourth one. Fourth one you will do will apply cost method or residual method. Now, what is cost and residual method? We will see later. Cost method under section 30, residual method under section 31. Next, and it has to be applied in the same manner. The steps has to be applied in the same manner. Next, rule 28 also we had finished seeing. Rule 28, again, it's going to be the open market value. If open market value is not available, you are going to see what is the value of the goods and services of like kind and quality. You are going to take that as the value. If that also is not available, you are going to apply rule number 30 or 31. Next, and this rule 28, when a supply is made between related and distinct person. When I say related and distinct person, means the relation of an agent and principal is being excluded. For that, there is a separate rule, rule number 29. Rule number 29 says that supply of goods or services by an agent. Who is an agent, students? An agent is a person who acts on the behalf of the principal. Means the agent will either supply the goods or services on behalf of the principal. So when the supply of goods is taking place between a principal and his agent, then you have to apply rule number 29 for its valuation. Now, what is going to be the value? See, students, first of all, the value is going to be the open market value or 90% of the price charged for such goods of like kind and quality by the recipient to his customer, not being a related person, okay, where the goods are intended for further supply by the said recipient. So let me just explain this in detail. The value in case the supply is made between a principal and agent. Now, principal and agent, there is a relationship between principal and agent. Now, principal and agent, what is going to be the value if principal is supplying goods to the agent? It is going to be the open market value, or it is going to be 90% of the value that the agent is charging to its customer, and that agent and customer should not be related. So whatever value the agent is charging to the customer who is not related to him, that values you have to take 90% of that value. So either of one, whichever is less, is going to be the value. Suppose you're not able to find out the open market value or not able to find out the 90% of the value charged by agent, that is the recipient. When I say, it can be either principal or agent. Agent can be supplying the goods to principal, or principal can supply goods to the agent. So it should be 90% what the recipient is charging from his customer, provided the recipient and customer are not related to each other. Suppose if A is not available, then again you have to determine by rule 30 or 31 in that order. So always first you have to see rule 30, then go to 31 if rule 30 is not applicable. Now, what is rule 30 and what is rule 31? Rule 30 is cost plus method. Now, what happens in cost plus method? Where the value of supply of goods or services or both is not determinable by any of the preceding rule. Preceding rule means rule 27, rule 28, rule 29. If you are not able to determine as per these rules, you have to use cost plus method, which says that the value shall be 110% of cost of production or manufacture or cost of acquisition of such goods or the cost of provision of such services. Okay, so suppose if the cost of production is 10,000, so what is going to be the value in case of cost plus method? 10,000 is the cost of production and 110% of that. So 110% of 10,000 is 21,000. So you have to take 110% of, sorry, 11,000 it is. You have to take 110% of 10,000, which is 11,000. So 11,000 you have to take as the value in case of cost plus method. Again, I'm repeating, rule 30 is cost plus method, which says that you have to come to this rule only when rule 27, 28, 29 did not apply. You were not able to find out the value under such rules, then you have to come to this rule. This rule says that take the value simple as 110% of cost of production, cost of manufacture, cost of acquisition, cost of provision of service, as the case may be. Next, let us see a problem on this. Suppose Peacock Limited is manufacturing office chairs and the cost of manufacturing is 4,000 per chair. Students, the cost of manufacturing is 4,000 per chair. Similar chair in the open market is valued at 4,500. Cost of manufacturing is 4,000. Open market value of that chair is 4,500. And these chairs are supplied to a furniture showroom at the rate of 3,000 and the balance in non-monetary consideration. So we cannot use rule number 15 subsection 1, 2, 3 here. Why? Because the price is not the sole consideration here, because price is partly in cash and partly in non-monetary consideration, that is partly in kind. Therefore, which rule are we going to use for the students? Can anyone tell me? When the consideration received in is partly in cash and partly in kind, which is the rule that we are going to apply in order to find out the value for this particular transaction? Can anyone tell me?
Ma'am, rule number
Yes,
27.
students? Correct. Rule number 27. What does rule number 27 tells us? You have to take the open market value first. So let us see in the problem if open market value is given. Is open market value given, students? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, given.
Is open market value given? Yes. So what is the question they are asking? What will be the value of supply? So can you all answer what will be the value of supply in this particular transaction?
Ma'am, 4,500.
4,500
Can you all tell
open
me?
market value.
Very good. So solution, now since the open market value is available, rupees 4,500 will be considered for valuation of supply. Now in B part of question they are asking something else. If open market value is not available, what will be the value of supply? Now suppose if this is not available, what is going to be the value of supply? First, what is does the rule say? Rule 27 says see open market value. If open market value is there, open market value will be the value of supply. Second point says that if open market value is not available, then what you have to do is take the consideration received in cash, add the monetary value of non uh, uh, consideration received in kind, and add this to. Now what is the non-monetary consideration received is not clearly given in the problem. They have just told and balance in non-monetary consideration. Have they told what is the non-monetary consideration received? No. So we cannot even apply point number 2 of rule 27. Then go to point number 3. Point number 3 says that if point number 1 and 2 is not applicable, then you have to see what is the value of the same product of like kind and quantity in the market. Now have they given what is the value of this similar product in the market? They have not given. So what does rule number 27 says? That if point number 1 of rule number 27, point number 2 of rule number 27, and point number 3 of rule number 27 does not apply, then you apply rule number 30 or 31 in that order. So first we'll go to rule number 30. What does rule number 30 says? That cost plus method. Suppose if you cannot ascertain the value, then you have to take the value as 110% of cost of production. Now is cost of production given or cost of manufacturing given, cost of acquisition is given? Yes, it is given as 4,000 rupees per chair. So can anyone tell what will be the answer for B? Question B, what is going to be the answer? Yes. Yes, students, what is going to be the answer for the B part? If open market value is not available, what will be the value of supply? The value of supply will be 110% of cost of manufacturing. Therefore, it is going to be 110% of 4,000,
4,400.
which is 4,400. So in case B, however, in case if open market value is not available, the value of supply as per cost method will be followed, which is as per rule will be 110% of cost of manufacturing, that is 4,000 into 110%, which is 4,400. Thus, GST will be charged on rupees 4,400 in this case. So, is rule number 30 clear to everyone? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now let us go to rule number 31. This is residual method. Now you have to come to this method only if rule 27, 28, 29, even 30 is not, you're not able to find out. Okay. So residual method says that you use some reasonable means to find the value. You calculate the value on the basis of certain reasonable means, and this reasonable means should be based on the provisions that we learned under section 15 and the principles that we have learned in the above rules. So where the value of supply of goods or services of both cannot be determined under rules 27 to 30, the same shall be determined using reasonable means consistent. Whatever means you're using to calculate the value, that should be in par with, it should be in consistent with the principles and general provisions of section 15 and the provisions of this chapter. Is this clear, students? Residual method mein what you will do, you will find out the value, you yourself will find out the value, but on some reasonable basis you will find out the value, and such reasonable basis should be inconsistent, in par with all the provisions that we have studied under section 15, and section 15 is valuation of goods and services under GST. Now, in case of supply of services, students, can you all determine the cost of provision of service? It is very difficult to determine the cost of provision of service. So the supplier may directly ignore rule 30 and come to rule 31. So provided in case of supply of services, the supplier may opt for this rule ignoring rule 30. See, in case of goods, you have to follow the order. First see rule 30, then if rule 30 is not, you're not able to find out, then go to rule 31. But in case of services, students, rule 30 can be ignored. Reason being, it is very tough to find out the cost of providing a service. You can easily find out what is the cost of production, what is the cost of manufacturing, what is the cost of acquiring the goods. But in case of providing services, it is little unreasonable to find out what can be the exact cost of providing these services. Therefore, you can ignore rule 30 and directly come to rule 31 in case of services. So is rule 31 clear, students? Yes? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Is rule 31 clear? Okay, so quickly I'm telling again rule 27 where consideration is received partly in cash kind. Rule 28 where the transaction is between related and distinct person. Rule 29 where the supply is between the principal and agent. Rule 30 cost plus method. Rule 31 residual method. So this rule from 27 to 31 is to be used when the price is not the sole consideration and the supply is between related persons. Now let us move ahead to rule 32 subsection 1, which says that notified goods and services issued by the government. Again, when I'm saying notified goods and services, means government has told that if there is a supply of such goods and services which I have notified, when I say I means which the government has notified, how to value only in list of notified goods and services. So let us see. Rule 32 subsection 1 says that valuation in case of notified goods and services. Government has notified certain goods and services and how to determine the value in case of those goods and services. So students, first pay attention to the thing that I am going to explain, then I will read out this entire thing. See students, first notified goods and services is sale of currency notes. So when I say sale of currency notes, it is nothing but purchase or sale of foreign currency, including money exchanger. Now, when any dealer is, or any person is into the purchase or sale of foreign currency, what is going to be the value when you're purchasing purchasing those currency, or what is going to be the value when you sell those currency. So remember students, there is two options in the hands of the dealer. Option number A, option number B. So either option he can execute, and once he has executed one option, he has to continue the same option throughout the financial year. So just remember, first thing, value in case of currency notes, sale of foreign currency will be the value, the service provider will be having two options, option A, option B. Option A, if he is opting for, he has to opt it for the entire financial year. He cannot switch between the options. Now, let us see what is option A. Option A, there are three, again, sub options. Which option you have to use? Just pay attention. Suppose if one of the currency note, okay, what he is exchanging is an Indian rupees. Suppose if one of the currency note that he's exchanging is for Indian rupees, like he's giving Indian rupees and he wants euro dollars. If he's giving euro, if he wants euro currency, and if he's giving Indian notes and he wants the US dollars. So did you all understand? One of the exchange should be an Indian currency. Now, if RBI reference rate is available, now when I say option A, sub option A and B, you are going to use A if one of the currencies exchanged is an Indian currency. This B part also if one of the currency exchanged is an Indian currency. But if RBI reference rate is available, now what is RBI reference rate? RBI gives a rate, okay, in respect of the currencies that are going to be exchanged, okay, against the Indian currencies. So RBI gives its own currency exchange rate, that is called as RBI reference rate. And if RBI reference rate is available, then what is going to be the value? RBI reference rate minus actual transaction rate. Whatever is the actual transaction rate, minus it with RBI reference rate, you will get the value. Multiply with the number of units that you are exchanging. If RBI reference rate is not available, see students, RBI issues RBI reference rate, okay, in respect of the currencies that is exchanged again Indian currencies, but it does not issue the reference rate for all the currencies in the world. It does not issue. There are certain currencies for which RBI will not issue the reference rate. So suppose if the RBI reference rate is not available, then value is going to be 1% of value in INR, means in Indian rupees. So whatever is the value in Indian rupees, you're going to take 1% of that as the value. So again, I'm repeating option number A, where one of the currency exchange is an Indian rupees, you have to see whether RBI reference rate is available or not available. If it is available, the value is going to be RBI reference rate minus actual transaction rate into number of units sold. If RBI reference rate is not available, the value is going to be 1% of value in INR, that is Indian rupees. Now, C point, where both the currency exchange are foreign currency, means where Indian currency is not into the picture itself, when both the currency exchange are foreign currencies. Suppose if euro is exchanged for US dollars, so both the currencies that are exchanged is foreign currencies, there is no Indian currency involved, then what is going to be the value? The value is going to be 1% of lower value in INR. Means you are going to convert both the foreign currency first into Indian currency, and after converting into Indian currency, you are going to see which value is lower. 1% of that will be the value on which you're going to charge GST. So again, I'm repeating, in case of sale, purchase or sale of foreign currency, there are two options. Option number A. Option number one is where one of the currencies that are exchanged is Indian currency. For that, you have to further check whether RBI reference rate is available, not available. If it is available, what is going to be the value? RBI reference rate minus actual transaction rate. If RBI reference rate is not available, the value is going to be 1% of value in INR, that is Indian rupees, not that foreign currency. Third is where both the currency exchange are foreign currency. foreign currency. Indian currency is not exchanged at all. Then what you're going to do is get those both the currencies value in Indian rupees, see the lower of the value in Indian rupees, take 1% of it as the value for charging GST. Is option A clear to everyone, students? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Is okay. Now there is option B also in the hands of the dealer who is dealing in exchange of foreign currency. Option B is just ignore option A. Don't consider anything of option A. In option B, what you have to do is see the value in INR. Whatever is exchanged, whichever currency is exchanged, you have to bring that value in Indian rupees. Suppose if the value is up to 1 lakh rupees, then the value to be taken for charging GST is 1% of the amount. Up to 1 lakh rupees, so, see whatever currency is exchanged, first you have to convert it in the value in Indian rupees. If that value is less than 1 lakh, up to 1 lakh or less than 1 lakh, value for charging GST is going to be 1% of that amount. Suppose for next 9 lakhs, if the value is 2 lakhs up to 9 lakhs, the value on which you have to charge GST will be rupees 1000 plus 0.5% of amount exceeding 1 lakh rupees, maximum 5,500. And if the value is exceeding 10 lakhs, the value on which you're going to charge GST is rupees 5,500 plus 0.1% of the amount exceeding 10 lakhs. Okay, maximum 60,000 and your minimum 250. Your minimum there is 250 rupees amount should be there for charging GST and your maximum 60,000. Now, either option A and or B can be selected by the supplier. But once an option is selected, it should not be changed in between a financial year. So these are the two options available with the supplier who is dealing in purchase or sale of foreign currency, how to value the amount in order to charge GST. Either he can opt for option A or option B. Is this clear, students? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Is option A and option B clear? Okay. Let us see one problem on this purchase or sale of foreign currencies. There is a Faro currency exchange. Okay, the unit exchange name is Faro currency exchange. They sold 10,000 units of USD. Okay, the conversion rate of USD 1 is INR 60. Okay, so 1 USD is 60 rupees in Indian currency. RBI reference rate is USD 1 is equals to INR 59. So as per RBI, the exchange rate is for 1 USD, the exchange rate is 59 Indian rupees. Calculate the value of supply. So first thing we know that the one currency that is exchanged is the Indian currency. The next step you have to see whether RBI reference rate is available or not available. If RBI exchange rate is available, what is going to be the value? The value is going to be RBI reference rate minus the actual transaction rate. Okay, so 60 minus 59 is 1 into the number of units that has been sold. So into 10,000. So the value of supply is going to be 10,000 rupees. Is this problem clear? Yes, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Problem number 2. Hyber exchange currency, the currency exchange name is Hyber currency exchange. They purchase 50,000 units of KRW, that is nothing but South Korean won, and one South Korean won is equals to INR 0.60. Okay, RBI reference rate is not available. Say again, I told you what is RBI reference rate. That rate that has been issued by the RBI in respect of currencies that are exchanged against Indian currencies. But RBI does not give a reference rate for all the countries' currency, students. There are certain countries currencies where RBI is not giving the reference rate. So in case of South Korean won, RBI's reference rate is not available. So when RBI reference rate is not available, what is going to be the value of supply? 1% of value in INR. So first you are going to convert this 5,000 units of South Korean won into Indian currency or Indian value. So 5,000 units of South Korean won, if you are converting into Indian currency, that is 5,000 into 0.60. So that is 3,000. Now this 3,000 is the value in Indian rupees into 1%. So that is going to be 30. 30 is going to be the value of supply in case of this particular transaction. Again, taking you back there, see here. If RBI reference rate is not available, value is going to be 1% of value in INR. So first, only calculate the value in INR, then take 1% of that. It is going to be the value on which you're going to charge GST. Is it clear, students? Is problem number 2 clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay. Next is Rule 32 subsection 3. Okay, sub rule 3, where we are going to see valuation in case of air travel agent. Again, I'm repeating, Rule 32 subsection 1 says that valuation will be for notified goods and services. Then Rule 32 sub rule 2 spoke about valuation in case of foreign currency exchange. Now Rule 32 sub rule 3 talks about valuation in case of air travel agent. Now, who is an air travel agent? He is a person who books a travel for the customers through air. Either it can be domestic travel or international travel. So what is going to be the valuation in case of air travel agent? Who is air travel agent? Who is going to book tickets for its customers to travel only through air? Either it can be domestic travel. When I say domestic travel, that is the flights that run within India. International travel is which are which is which you are planned for a travel outside India. Now, how are you going to value it? Very simple, students. See whether it is domestic travel or international travel. If it is domestic travel, the value is going to be 5% of basic fare. If it is an international travel, the value is going to be 10% of basic fare. Now, what is basic fare, students? It is a it is that amount of air ticket on which commission is paid to the agent. See, basically, when an agent is booking a travel for its customers, it is paid commission, right? So commission is paid usually on some value of that particular ticket on the basic fare. So on whatever amount the commission is received by the agent, that is to be considered as the basic fare. So basic fare is that amount of the air ticket on which commission is paid to the agent. Okay, so it's very simple. Just you need to check whether it is domestic travel, international travel. If domestic travel, take it as 5% of basic fare. International travel, take 10% of basic fare as the value. So let us see a problem on this. Mr. Chetan is an air travel agent. From the following information, compute the value of supply of services and GST at the rate of 18%. Domestic travel, the basic fare is 2 lakh rupees. Can anyone tell me what is going to be the value in case of domestic fare? What is the value I will take on which I'm going to charge GST? In case of air travel agent, what is going to be the value, students?
5%.
10,000.
10,000, ma'am.
5% of 2 lakh, that is 10,000. And in case of international travel, what is going to be the value on which I'm going to charge GST? On full 5 lakh, will I be charging GST? Or what is the amount? Yes, students?
25,000.
25,000.
Ma'am, 10% of 5
In
lakh.
case of domestic, 10% of 5 lakh is how much?
50,000.
50,000. Sorry.
50. So see the solution for domestic travel, the value as per the rule, okay, is rule 32 sub rule 3 is 5% of 2 lakh, which is 10,000. And for international travel, it is 10% of the basic fare amount, that is 5 lakh, which is 50,000. Now, this is the value on which I'm going to charge GST. So GST is already given is at the rate of 18%. So GST at the rate of 18% is going to be calculated on the value of supply, that is 10,000, and not on 2 lakh or 5 lakh students. So 18% on 10,000 is 1,800, and 18% on 50,000 is 9,000. So total is 11,800, and this is 59,000. So is this clear, students? Is problem number 1 in relation to rule 32 sub rule 3 clear to everyone? Yes?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For today, we will stop with this rule, because the rule number 32 sub rule 4 is quite big. So we may not be able to complete it in this lecture. Okay. So quickly, we'll just revise what the rules that we have covered. Can anyone tell me rule 27, consideration received partly in cash and partly in kind? How do you value in such situation? Can anyone just explain? Yes?
Ma'am, first we have to check the open market value, which is given in the problem. If it is not available, then the the money received in kind plus the value of that supply, that we have to add. And if that is also not available, then we have to see the product which is similar in kind and quantity. And then later we have to apply the rule number 30 and 31, which is the cost plus method and the residual method, ma'am.
Okay, what does cost plus method tell us? How to value under cost plus method? Can any other student tell me in cost
110%.
of what?
110% of the manufacturing or
Yes.
acquiring.
Yes. Very good. So whatever is the cost relating to acquiring the goods or manufacturing of the goods or production of goods, you're going to take 110% of that. Rule 31, residual method. What does residual method tells us? Yes. That if none of the methods like 27 to 30 you are not able to apply, then with some reasonable basis which is inconsistent with the principles that we have covered under section 15, you determine the value. Okay. Now rule 32 sub rule 1 talks about valuation in case of notified goods and services, where we have seen two sub rules, that is rule 32 sub rule 2, rule 32 sub rule 3. So in case of sale of currency, can you all tell me how many options are available to the dealer who is dealing in purchase or sale of foreign currency for its valuation? How many options are available in case of sale of currency?
Ma'am,
Two
option
options, ma'am.
B.
Yes.
A and B. In A, subsection 3, ma'am.
Subsection 3.
No, ma'am.
No,
No,
there
ma'am.
are two options available.
In A, there are again three, ma'am.
Again 3, but those 3 again 3 is determined on the transaction that you're doing. If the exchange transaction involves one Indian currency, okay, and RBI reference rate is available, then what is going to be the value? RBI reference rate minus actual transaction rate into the units that you are selling or purchasing. Suppose if RBI exchange rate is not available, and if it is an Indian currency that is exchanged, what is going to be the value?
1% of Indian value of INR.
Very good. Very good. 1% of the value in Indian rupees. Okay. Now, if both the currencies that you're exchanging is not and for Indian currency, both the currencies are foreign currency, then first you have to bring those foreign currencies into Indian rupees. See the lower, whichever value is lower among the two, that 1% you're going to take of that lower value in INR as your value of supply. Okay. Second, can anyone apart from Divya and Divyashri and Yashaswini tell me how to value in case of air travel agent? What are you going to check first? Which type of travel it is? Based on which type of travel, you are going to decide the value as per rule 32 sub rule 3. So can anyone explain me air travel agent valuation? Yes? Yes, students? Can anyone tell me what is going to be the valuation in case of air travel agent? Yes, students? Okay. Tell me if it is a domestic travel, what is the value I'm going to take for valuing
Ma'am, 5% of
for
base.
Charlie?
5%.
And suppose it is a international travel, then what is the value I'm going to take?
10% of base.
10%.
Now, who is an air travel agent?
Air travel is a person who books ticket for the customers in the air for domestic and international.
Travel.
Very good. Very good. So thank you so much, students. We are done for the session for today.